Crazy, man. But this type of stuff has been being said about Palestinians on American television for like 80 years in different variations. It's just that the American political scene has gotten like more toxic, so I think even I don't know if that's made it more aggressive in any way, because it feels like on TV Palestinians are getting more of a shake or more of a platform to speak, whether it be on Piers Morgan's show or on major networks, than they have ever. But it's still not, in my opinion, enough. So maybe I've just, my standards are too high. But God, this is bad. You gotta do gentle harassment. Exactly. Gentle harassment. Or since you've already been demonetized, you can go hard. I'm a horrible influence. That is true. What are they gonna do? Demonetize me again? What is YouTube gonna do? Dylan, we're gonna take away your payment. Oh, you already took away my payment. I guess now I can do Dylan Burns Unhinged, Dylan Burns Unleashed, Dylan Burns Uncensored. Okay, let's talk about this Fox News segment. So I have never been a big fan of Fox. I've never enjoyed their commentary about any number of topics. I think that they're extremely hyperbolic. I think much of their rhetoric is very hateful. I think that they walk back from many of their conclusions in order to defend Donald Trump over the last 6-7 years of him being major in the political scene. And even before that, whether it be their commentary leading into the Iraq War or any of their commentary that they do generally, just their business model, I do not like. The lack of fact checking, how Tucker Carlson can go on the network before he was removed because he cost them money, not because he constantly lied. He can go on their network and say things like, for every one Russian soldier that dies, 7 Ukrainian soldiers die. And they never issue a correction. They never apologize. They just pretend it didn't happen. And in fact, he says it again a week later, when the fact checkers could have obviously, or would have obviously found out that he lied by then. But no. They don't have those standards. So I don't like Fox. I don't like Fox. I think Fox News has contributed to some of the worst aspects of how American news coverage and American political commentary has evolved over the last few decades. Not a big fan of Murdoch. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys a Fox News segment. What's this guy's name? I forget. This isn't Brian Kilmeade. Fox, let me look up Fox News hosts. What's his name? No, that's Brian Kilmeade. His name is not Brett Baer. Not Greg Gutfeld. Ugh, Gutfield. I don't like Gutfield. What is his name? Somebody in chat must know. Jesse Waters. Thank you. His name's Jesse Waters. And he has some things to say about the Palestinians. And it essentially is trying to equivocate all of Hamas with the Palestinian population to then justify whatever Israel wants to do. And he quite frankly says, you just let them do whatever they need to do. Listen to this.
I don't think we can have a Palestinian state at this point. I've had it with the Palestinians. I've given up on the Palestinians. If I was in Israel, I wouldn't be talking about a Palestinian state right now. I don't think Joe Biden should be talking about a Palestinian state right now. And I don't like how people tried to differentiate between the Palestinians and Hamas. To me,
Can I just quickly say, now, I don't want to suggest that the Palestinians are like the German people during World War II. I don't want to suggest that. But the idea that the Palestinians don't deserve a conversation about a state, when what is causing a lot of the violence is the denial of the Palestinians of a state for 80 years and the continued occupation of their land, is absolutely ridiculous. It's like avoiding the obvious question in the room about the future of the Palestinian people. Will they just be a people in occupation in perpetuity? What he is saying right now, right, is, and I guess, again, we can't compare World War II to everything. But could you imagine if after, or in the lead up to the end of World War II, we were like, a Japanese state? A German state? A country known as German. I don't think the German people can be trusted with the state. Do you just see what they did? They committed the worst crime against the Jewish people in history. In modern history, they've committed the worst genocide against the Jewish people, an industrialized, systematic extermination of the people. And 4 years later, we were forming a West German government. And 3 years after that, 3 or 4 years after that, we were forming a West German army. East Germans as well. both the Soviet Union and the United States, that a government known as Germany, a nation known as Germany, needed to exist, needed to be a state, because the Germans deserved some, and obviously the East Germans and the West Germans disagreed about how much representation in the government they should have, but they understood that they needed a state, they needed a country, and they needed to have some representation to be able to manage their affairs. If you were to occupy the German people in perpetuity, then you would have had a real guerrilla movement on your hands. And the Nazis tried to invest in that guerrilla movement. They did this thing called the Wolverine Project, which was, I don't know if you guys know about this, but the Germans in 1944 started to see the writing on the wall, and they started to turn the Wolverine Project into a guerrilla project to store different like weapons across the country and different munitions, so that a guerrilla movement, once the German government has fallen, a Nazi guerrilla movement could take into the mountains and resist and fight for years. And there were some examples of it wasn't Wolverines, it was the werewolf movement. Thank you. There were some examples of this happening, but it wasn't that successful. And I think part of the reason it wasn't successful is that we didn't decide that Germany as a country just no longer exists. If that was the decision we came to after everything was said and done, then we would have proved the Nazi propagandists right, that we sought nothing but the destruction of the German Volk. Same thing with Japan. Do you think if we said at the end of World War II, Japan doesn't exist anymore, this is just America's aircraft carrier in the Pacific, that there wouldn't have been Japanese rebellions, that there wouldn't have been Japanese resistance movements? We understood that in order for us to coexist peacefully, there had to be a place for the Japanese people to live and coexist and, work with us. If we move the 2.1 million Palestinians out of Gaza, force them out of Gaza with no state and with no country wanting to take them in, we're creating a large stateless population, and we will do nothing but further compress and push those people to radicalism. I'm just saying, there's not a lot of people in the world who would say at the end of World War II, oh, Germany and Japan just shouldn't exist as countries anymore. Because we understood it was silly. That was something we knew 80 years ago that this guy doesn't understand today.
Differentiate between the Palestinians and Hamas. To me, I see people with guns. That's Hamas. The people without the guns are the Palestinians. They believe the same thing. The Palestinians hire Hamas to run their government. You poll them.
What does that even mean? They hire Hamas to run their government. There was an election in 2006. They haven't held an election since then. The majority of the population in Gaza did not vote for Hamas. The majority of the population in Gaza, I don't even think was alive when Hamas took power. I know 48% of the population is under the age of 14, right? Hamas took power 15, 16 years ago. I think at least half the population wasn't even alive when Hamas took power. So how can we say that those 12-year-olds, those children all believe the same thing as Hamas, especially when we have polling data that suggests that 65% of the Palestinian population didn't want to break the ceasefire with Israel? There are also Palestinians in the West Bank who don't support Hamas, but support Fatah. In fact, there are people in Gaza that support Fatah and not Hamas. There are people in Gaza who support the PLO or separate organizations instead of Hamas. The Palestinian people, as is true with any people anywhere, have varying opinions and views on all sort of political issues. But Hamas controls political life in the Gaza Strip and suppresses dissent. You cannot just say they're all one and the same. This is the logic that leads to collective punishment. This is the logic that leads to people saying, if Hamas doesn't do this, then we're going to punish the Palestinian people for it because they're one and the same. That's how you end up cutting off water. That's how you end up cutting off food. That's how you end up cutting off electricity and fuel and things that are necessary for daily life. That's how you end up expelling the Palestinian population from Gaza and kicking them off their homes after you've kicked the people who live there off their homes like twice already from 1948 to 1967. Whether it was the Nakba or the other wars that happened that displaced people.
They all love killing Jews. It's in their charter.
All the Palestinians love killing Jews. This type of rhetoric, and I am not somebody who's going to pin like terrorist attacks on any individual person for their rhetoric. I don't like to do that. I don't like to say stochastic terrorism, so this person saying this led to this person dying. I can't say that. I could say that the type of rhetoric this person used led to the political environment that could have motivated this person to do something. But when it comes to what he just said, all the Palestinians all like killing Jews. It's in their charter. It's in the charter of Hamas, but all the Palestinians don't like killing Jews. Again, 65% of the Palestinian population in the Strip did not want to break the ceasefire with Israel. It seems like they were not that eager. They were not that eager to go on some military campaign, even if Hamas was. This is the type of rhetoric that turns non-combatants into combatants, or makes it so that when you drop bombs and you kill people and you don't consider the civilian casualties, you can justify it through saying, well, I don't know, that kid was probably a Hamas munchkin. Like just another one of those Hamas guys. They all wanted to kill the Jews anyway, so it's whatever. This is the type of rhetoric that leads to people dehumanizing the population and justifying the most brutal aspects of the Israeli bombing campaign. And I think that's the point here. I think that's the point. So that when people who watch your show see civilian casualties, see the corpses, see the dead bodies of Palestinians, they think, oh, that was just somebody who wanted to kill all the Jews, so who cares?
They say they believe in suicide bombings. Every time a Palestinian refugee goes to another country, it doesn't work out so well.
What does that even mean? Every time a Palestinian refugee goes to another country, it doesn't work out so well. Justin Amash is somebody I met at LibertyCon. He is a person I disagree with politically on a million different issues. He's a libertarian conservative. But that is somebody who has come to the United States, contributed to the United States as a Palestinian American. Somebody who's shouting from the rooftops about his family members who are being killed in bombardment in Gaza right now. How can we say that, oh, that didn't end well? What did he do? I mean, I could say I disagree with his policies. Disagree with his legislative agenda. But what he's trying to suggest is that if we take in Palestinian refugees, or any, he said every time a Palestinian refugee, so if we take out in any Palestinian refugees, it's going to end with terror bombings, it's going to end with stabbings. He is taking the broadest of brushes and painting the entire population as terrorists. And by doing that, it justifies some of the most brutal actions that can be taken against them. He's preparing the population for a brutal Israeli invasion. That's what he's doing. But not only is he preparing people for that, he's also trying to make sure people don't do anything to lessen the suffering of the Palestinian people by taking in refugees or sending in aid.
For the other country and for those Palestinians, no one wants them. You don't see Egypt opening up their doors. You don't see Jordan opening up. You don't see the Saudis. Why don't they want the Palestinians, Dana?
Well, the Egyptian government said so. Let's see if he listens to what the Egyptian government said.
I think we all know why they don't want the Palestinians, and it's not working out having these.
He says that because he doesn't want to get specific. The Egyptian government said that they don't want the Palestinians to leave the Gaza Strip because they believe that the Israelis are going to take over the Gaza Strip afterwards, and then the Palestinian project, the idea of a Palestinian state, basically dead. That's what they said. That's not the only reason. They also don't want to have to support a large refugee population, and they also don't trust the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood has deep ties to Hamas. Hamas descended from from the Muslim Brotherhood. A lot of Muslim Brotherhood people, once they fled Egypt after the El-Sisi coup, went to Gaza. So I think there's a bunch of different reasons why Egypt doesn't want to take in the Palestinians. But again, the idea that taking in any Palestinian refugee is going to end with Black September, it's going to end with the Palestinians trying to overthrow the government or tons of terror bombings, that isn't true. That isn't the case. We have Palestinian Americans living in the United States today that are a testament to that. You have to have a pretty low opinion of the United States and its ability to assimilate people into our society if you think that we were able to do that basically with every other population of human beings on the earth, but we can't do it with Palestinians, even though we've shown that we can do it with Palestinians before, through people like Congressman Justin Amash, former Congressman.
Palestinians and Hamas right next door to the Israelis. So time is running out for Netanyahu. I don't know why they're taking so long with this ground offensive. I would have struck, obviously, I have no military experience. And I'm talking about there's a certain amount of goodwill that's built up.
I love the idea of Fox News armchair. See, if I was in Netanyahu's position, this is what I would move my troops in a spearhead formation. You know, maybe do a little bit of and this is a term in the military. You know, this is a military term for the people at home. Flank them, maybe. Like, get out of here. Come on.
Certain amount.
It's not like Fox News can't call up some general to talk about this.
The political capital that the West will allow Netanyahu in the wake of this horrific attack. Every day that goes by and they don't move in on the ground and root out these terrorists in their little labyrinth under in the command and control.
Dude, little labyrinth is not going to feel little when Israeli soldiers have to clear it out. Also, did you guys see that Middle East Eye article? I don't know if you guys saw this. Unrelated. No, I mean, semi-related because he just brought it up. But semi-related. I don't know if you saw this. This is an article from the Middle East Eye where they says Israel will flood Hamas's tunnels with nerve gas under U.S. Navy supervision. So I read the article, and this, look what I found here. U.S. Delta Force will oversee large quantities of nerve gas being pumped into Hamas tunnels, capable of paralyzing bodily movements for a period of time between 6 and 12 hours. So there's a few problems with this. Okay, number one, I don't believe it. It doesn't sound real. It sounds like the fakest shit ever. But okay, let's pretend for a moment that we're reviewing this as if it's even has the possibility of being true. Number one, the article says that the U.S. Navy is going to oversee it. U.S. Delta Force isn't part of the Navy. So is it the Navy or is it U.S. Delta Force? Number two, nerve gas doesn't work that way. Nerve gas does not paralyze you between 6 to 12 hours. And we're talking about miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of tunnels. We're not just talking about like a small enclosed room like this studio. We're talking potentially like 100 to 200 kilometers, like a crazy amount of tunnel length. I don't know the exact tunnel length. No one knows the exact tunnel length, but the rumors about it vary. But either way, it is a sprawling tunnel network they've built up over 15 to 16 years. Not only is filling it all with nerve gas, I think, impossible, but that's not the nerve gas doesn't make you go to sleep. It's not like a cartoon, like, oh, nerve gas, oh, boo. No, it'll kill them. It'll kill people. That's not how this is not how nerve gas works. So the story is just complete hogwash. Don't believe it. Don't trust the Middle East Eye on this. I think this like pretty solidly shoots a lot of their credibility. It's not the only time that they've done shoddy reporting like this. Anyway, back to what is it? Jesse Waters? Yeah, Jesse Waters.
In the command and control, the decapitation strikes. It's another day where the United Nations, where the Arab League, and some of these skittish American politicians are going to say, you know what, let's have a ceasefire.
You know, there's a few things I want to say. First thing is, if Israel engages in an invasion of the Gaza Strip before they're ready and then messes it up and then looks like the Russians, not only will they have failed to achieve their objective of removing Hamas from the Gaza Strip, it'll further shoot the government's credibility, which is already 98% in the toilet, right? It's just somebody just needs to flush, to be quite frank. So it'll shoot that. By the way, I don't know if you guys have seen the approval ratings of the Israeli armed forces compared to the Israeli government. One second. Let's see if I can pull this up off screen quickly. But if I was an Israeli officer, right? One second. Let me get this thing up here. Let me get this thing up here. Here it is. Found it. Sorry it took me so long. But here's the polling data I wanted to show you guys. What is your level of trust in the following institutions? This is Israeli poll. Government, non-existent, 79%. Trust, 18. Military, 20% low. 77% high or very high. And I've already seen other people talk about this too. If I was an Israeli general, if you don't look at this and start having the gears start to turn in your head, start getting a few, crazy and creative ideas, then Sir, I simply think you're not an ambitious individual at all. Okay? I don't think you've got any ambition. I don't think you've got any vision. And quite frankly, you don't have a lot of imagination in the noggin. But I don't think the government wants to follow up after failing to protect the people of southern Israel with a failed invasion of the Gaza Strip. That would be the worst case scenario. So they're only going to move in when they're 100% sure that they got it, that they know that it's going to be successful. At least that's my belief. And that would be the smart thing for Netanyahu's government to do if they're going to do the invasion, which it looks like they are going to. But Netanyahu has never necessarily done the smart thing in the situations that he finds himself. That's the first thing. The second thing, sorry, finding that poll made me lose my train of thought.
Where the Arab League and some of these skittish.
Oh, here's the other thing. If they invade and take over the Gaza Strip and continue to deny them a state and remove Gaza as a governing body, remove the Palestinians as a governing force in Gaza permanently, as he is seemingly suggesting, this is only going to cause more long-term instability, and it's only going to further dry up any sympathy that Israel has garnered from the attacks on October 7th, much of which they've already dried up through the bombing campaign, the bombing of churches, the killing of UN workers, the killing of journalists, etc.
American politicians are going to say, you know what, let's have a ceasefire. Let's just wait. Let's just stop. And if they don't go in hard and they don't go in decisively and they don't have the time to go in and root out these terrorists, then they're not going to do it. And then we're going to be back again 5 years later. There's going to be another horrific attack here.
Going to be another horrific attack. This is the thing that confuses me. On one hand, he believes that if we do not remove Hamas, go in there, take over the Gaza Strip, and deny the Palestinians a state, then we're just going to be here again in 5 years. But I also believe that if you go into the Gaza Strip, take over the Gaza Strip, remove Hamas, and continue to deny the Palestinians a state, then Palestinian militants are going to just get more radicalized. More people are going to be radicalized into that movement as their statehood is continue denied, and they possibly become a stateless population. And then we're going to be in the situation 5 years down the road because we still haven't given the Palestinians a political solution that could be accepted by the Palestinian population.
Here,
as we have been facing, and this is not like a novel idea I'm throwing out there. This isn't like a super, like a groundbreaking idea. This has been the case for the last 80 years. So I'm saying that it will continue that way until we find a political solution to the combat, to the conflict. There is not only a military solution to the conflict unless your intention is to, quite frankly, eliminate the other side in its entirety, which the Palestinians just can't do, and I don't think they should do. And while the Israelis might have more of a means to do it, they shouldn't do it, and would probably lead to a lot more deaths of not only Palestinians, but Israelis as well. Anyway, this is the type of coverage they're getting on Fox. Old people. When you hear stories like that man who stabbed that 6-year-old Muslim boy, I don't know, 6-year-old Muslim boy. I don't know if we should. Yeah, we'll bring up the story. There was a 6-year-old Muslim boy who was stabbed to death by his landlord, his mother's landlord, because he's Palestinian. That's it. They just said, oh, he's Palestinian. He's Palestinian, therefore he's a terrorist. He supports what happened in southern Israel. He was getting probably cranked up, maybe not by Fox, but by hateful rhetoric, and went out and stabbed him to death. When you say that all the Palestinians want to go kill the Jews, and when you say that all the Palestinians shouldn't come here, look, because they're destroying all the countries that they go to, when we have Palestinian Americans who are contributing to society, we know that people can assimilate into American society. We've been able to do it for hundreds of years. But when that type of rhetoric gets out there, it does lead to stuff like this. It absolutely does. And I don't want to pin any individual stabbing on Jesse, but I am saying that the rhetoric that Jesse's putting out does lead to stuff like this. Does lead to the political environment and the rhetoric that leads to these types of hate crimes, and is not going to solve the problem. It is not going to solve the 80 to 100 year conflict between Palestinians and Israelis. You cannot just bomb this problem away. Okay, that's enough of that segment. But God, Jesse Waters' Fox segments are fucking terrible.